Welcome to Real Wisdom, where we dive into the real stories of remarkable women. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Jill Salzman. Jill is a seasoned entrepreneur, author, and coach who's changing the game for women in business. She's the founder of the Founding Moms, a platform that revolutionized support for mom entrepreneurs, and now she's focused on empowering women of all ages to build thriving businesses. And if you're curious to hear more stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Hi, Jill.
Hello, Holly.
Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really excited about this. And, I just have to say, we all have met that one person that knows everybody, is connected to everybody, and just likes to bring people together. And you and I met in Chicago over 10 years ago. And I just have to say, you are that person.
I am?
You are. And
I thought you were leading up to like Mahatma Gandhi or, Mother Teresa.
Jill. And I just have to say, is that a superpower that you were born with, or is that something that just came later?
I guess so, because I didn't realize it was a superpower. I do love to connect people. I love community, but I guess it comes naturally because I don't think of it as anything special at all whatsoever. So I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, good. Well, I guess then that's where the idea of founding moms came from. And as founding moms grew, and now that you've moved away from that, do you feel you accomplished your goals when you set out to start that group?
I don't know, because I didn't really have any goals when I set out to start the group. I like to explain that I started it by accident because I had a very personal need to meet other moms that had businesses and babies, and how were they doing it and thriving and getting away with it, let's be frank. And I started what was a little meetup that ended up growing and growing and growing. So I didn't intend to launch a whole global community, but then I started following all of the members and I started loving what was happening with people meeting one another, working together, making connections that they wouldn't have made otherwise. So it became the most rewarding job of my lifetime. And after 13 years, I think I felt I could do all that I could do. And I knew somewhere inside of me it was time to let go and move on. And so I found an amazing human being in Kathy Suber, who runs, I don't know if you know her, but she runs a gorgeous community that's bigger than Founding Moms ever was, called the Branch Moms. And she decided to take us on and create a business arm, because our focus, of course, was just entrepreneurial moms. So it, as they all say, and I'm not a huge believer in it, but I think the universe just sort of knew what to do with me. And it was time.
It was time.
If that answers your question.
Sure. When you look back at maybe that first meeting, and then to where it ended, how does it feel? Because that was really, it is kind of special. The first meeting was just moms having coffee, right?
It's pretty bananas if you put it that way. And my brain doesn't really work that way, but I have a marker for it because my second daughter was an infant and I would bring her strapped to me to the, and she's about to go to high school. So there's just a kid marker of, oh my goodness, so much can happen in a few years. Yeah. And by the time the last meeting came, I was such a different person than the woman who was at the first meeting that it's not even comparable in my head. There was so much that changed, so much I learned about building a business into a global community, so much I learned about the members and what they're struggling with, and I knew nothing at the beginning, and I knew thousands of stories by the end. That it was just so different. I've never even thought about it. I'm going to think about that some more.
You must have met some really amazing women. Is there one story that really stands out to you, or someone that you met that you were just so impressed by what they had accomplished? I'm sure there's probably many.
You know what? There are so many that it depends on the kind of story that's impactful for you. Because if we're talking about making it in terms of making millions of dollars or scaling your business into the stratosphere, we had a woman who did show up with a product in mind, explained it to all of us at one of our founding exchanges in Naperville. And we all laughed at her because we thought, oh, you poor thing, that's never going to happen. And then, of course, as the story would go, she figured it out. She came back for more and more support. What do you guys think I should do with the packaging? How should I sell over here, over there? Soon enough, she was in Sephora. And by soon enough, I mean several years. She was in Sephora, and then she's traveling the globe selling her beauty product everywhere and is now doing quite well.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my favorite story, in that even in a warm, safe place like our meetings were, we all kind of shared honest truth as entrepreneurs do and thought that's not going anywhere. And then it really went somewhere. So that's a fun story. I think my favorite personal stories are not the I figured out how to scale it, because most of our members, and I think most mom entrepreneurs, are not interested in scaling. It was watching what happened with the connections and watching people create new products together or launching a webinar together. It could have been a very basic something, but they would not have been introduced to the idea had they not been a part of it. So many stories, but those are two brief versions.
Well, you know, there's something interesting though about the first story, because you said that when the woman came to the event, she might not have made a connection with you guys, but that's sort of the interesting thing about it, is that not everybody has to get you. But if you believe.
Yeah. And I think, to your point, a lot of people show up needing or seeking that validation that, oh, this is a good idea, therefore I'm going to pursue it. This woman was extraordinary because she didn't. And we weren't laughing in her face. That's the memory I have. But
yes,
to paint the picture more deeply, she showed up in sweats. She had spit up all over her sweats. She clearly hadn't left her home in a long time. And so the whole full picture was that this poor thing.
Right. Yes.
We're here to lift you up, but oh, you poor thing. And she just knew in her mind, in her heart, that no, this product was going to work.
Yeah.
And it did. Yeah.
You said that, you know, you felt that you were a different person at the end of founding Moms.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
What about you was different?
I began my journey in entrepreneurship believing the personal is very, very separate from the professional. I understood what most people understand, that you have to be very serious and maintain an all-black wardrobe and flat iron your hair and not be yourself, but shove it down so that people can like you more. I'm air quoting. And I definitely didn't think that emotion needed to be involved at any meeting or any business, anything, when I began the journey. So I drank the Kool-Aid of the men who write those business books and tried to do that for some years, thinking that was the way people were going to take me seriously and buy my stuff and join me. And by the end of the journey, it was like all of that had shattered completely. And I stopped being afraid of emotion at a business meeting. And the more that women poured their hearts out to one another, the more we all got out of the meeting. I stopped wearing business suits and I started wearing patterned leggings with wildly curly hair. And I think that all entrepreneurial evolution that's really what entrepreneurship is about, is the evolution of you as a person. Doesn't matter what happens in your business. You will evolve. And I think I got to a much better place than where I began, but I didn't know that until much later.
Well, I met you during the pattern leggings and the curly hair, and that was what I remember coming home and telling my husband, like, she's just amazing. Like, she's just so full of life, and Jill. So that's why I guess I'm glad I didn't see the.
You are so glad you didn't see it. You can see it because I gave a TED Talk on 11/11/11, such a great day to remember, where you'll see I have my flat iron hair and I have an all black, gray situation.
Yeah.
And I made that shift by accident as well, where I was just in a rush to get to an interview. So I ran into a co-working space where I worked at the time, forgot to do my hair, had my home clothes on. And so many people gave me that reaction. Oh my God, that's so refreshing. Oh my God, how funky. Oh, this is so cute. That I was in shock, I think. Like, wait, you would take me seriously, or you would want anything to do with me as me? And so I really leaned into being more ridiculous and being louder and being funnier and just not taking ourselves so seriously. And then there became a motto for the founding moms: business does not have to be boring. So everybody knew we can all do this and also have a good time.
Because, sometimes showing up as you're who you are in that moment on that day, being rushed, being, like you say, showing up with baby spit up all over you, but you still came to the meeting.
You came to the meeting, you showed up, and you asked the right questions. Exactly. Yeah.
I have to be fully transparent with you, because now that I'm in midlife, I feel there are so many other women that are in this space that, now have the time and they have the skills and they have the knowledge and the relationships, but they still feel a little stuck, and that maybe they think to themselves, it's too late for me now. Like, I should have done it then. And what advice would you give to somebody who comes with you with such a crazy idea?
Oh, yeah, that is so crazy. Well, it's never crazy, because I think that whole person I was at the end of the whole journey of founding moms discovered that at every age, at every stage, entrepreneurship is no different for any age bracket. So when you're 20, you think you need to figure it out really quickly. When you're 40, you think you didn't figure out quickly enough because you started so late. And then there are women who start out in their 60s. I have a client right now who's 71 and starting out all over again. And everyone at every one of those ages has the same fears come up for them. They just happen at different moments. So if somebody's going, I missed the boat, I'm 55, I'm 65, I'm 75, I can't do this, the only person stopping you is you. Because there's no reason you need to do that. There's no reason to sit around and it's all of these thoughts that we convince ourselves are so real that are not. That I want to encourage anybody listening at any age, that if that's kind of been like a nagging dream of yours, or you just think you have the best idea, or you belong being your own boss, that is what you need to explore, even if it doesn't end up giving you $1 billion. It's, again, I really do strongly believe it is the personal evolution that's so important in this stuff. And there are a lot of women who reach 50 and need to go through that because they didn't explore any of that from 0 to 50,
I think that, that's part of the conversation. I don't want other women to feel that they can't do something or feel stuck in the moment. I think it's so helpful when you have these conversations and other women can see, they might take a little bit of a conversation and it might mean something to them and make an impact so that they can move forward.
Absolutely. And I always wished that the moving forward was not, okay, I heard one little tidbit from an interviewer, I saw an Instagram post, and now I'm going to go launch an entire business. My hope is always that they lean into what they heard and build on it, just inch by inch, centimeter by centimeter. And that often, for me at least, meant getting into a room where other people are doing it or other people are talking about doing it, so we can reinforce, I'm going to be very real with you. There were a lot of occurrences I would hear from members who would show up and say, I thought she was a bit of a nut job. If she could do it, I can do it. There was a lot of realization of like, wait, she's just a regular mom of 3, but she's doing that?
Yes.
I can do. You can't get that looking in the mirror, reading an article. You need other human beings to give you that energy. That's very, very simple. Just if I can do it, you certainly can figure this out, because at the end of the day, we all know nobody knows what they're doing.
No. And the other thing I think too is, even if, let's say you have an idea for a business and somebody can write you a check for whatever it is that you need to get that business off the ground. I think if you've missed all those steps in the beginning, all of that learning and talking to people and seeing how other people are doing things, you have just wasted all of that money.
Absolutely. I knew specifically one founding mom that invested $5,000 to pay a consultant to do research on this product idea that she had. She spent all that money. The person did tons of research. They spent 3 or 4 months putting this together. And then the day that she launched, nobody bought anything because nobody remembered to go ask anybody anywhere if they'd actually buy the thing that she was going to sell. So I think the consultant was just researching how the product would work. How do we make the product?
Yeah.
Where do we get the product sourced, etc. But nobody remembered to say, well, where's the audience? Is there one at all? And there was none. I think it had to do with knitting. Anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Lots of people waste lots of money.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I like you said, I think there's those little baby steps that have to go before the big idea.
Yeah. And no one needs to buy the Ferrari until you know how to drive. Otherwise, it's a waste.
You said that you would bring your baby with you to the meetings. A boy, girl?
Girl.
Girl. Now, do you feel that she, I don't know, I mean, she's still very young, but did that make a difference for her? Because she was around moms, not as an infant, but I'm sure you've brought her places.
Yeah, I think I checked in a lot about the impact. I would ask little things like, do you know what your mom does for a living? All the way to getting them involved in things I was doing. When they were toddlers, I needed to work, so I'd give them stacks of paper to staple, or they would draw, or they'd come to my co-working space and they would write stories, or I'd give them stuff to do.
Yes.
And eventually I included them in the business. So they wrote a newsletter called The Founding Kids. I think I was so concerned with the fact that they wouldn't understand what I did for a living. I haven't examined why, but I think a lot of it was, I want you to know that your mom is working, that she's really happy, and that she loves what she does, because I want that for you too. So my 2 daughters, if you ask them now, they fully understand what entrepreneurship is. I don't know if they're going to go into it themselves.
Right.
But they really do appreciate it. They have been guests on former podcasts of mine. They know Mom likes to include them in all of this stuff because I didn't want them to feel left out, and I was just always busy and I had no time for them.
Right.
So that might have been the impetus for that. Yeah.
But I love that because I think maybe now you might have planted a seed that they could see both sides of it. Maybe they do want to go work for a big company or for somebody, but then they also might be like, maybe I could do that better.
Oh, yeah. And I like that they got to witness somebody that could schedule her own schedule, that had freedom to take off when she wanted to take off. I was able to show up to all of whatever games and things they had, which is really hard if any mom entrepreneurs are listening or dad entrepreneurs are listening. Very hard. Schedule, it's tough.
It's tough, and isn't just because you are working for yourself does not mean you have more hours than other people.
Correct. But it feels like you have less than everyone else all the time. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Can I read you something?
Yes, please.
In a 2021 interview, you said, "In my time helping moms build businesses, I've come to see that no one takes us seriously. The media, our culture, no one seems to value what the working woman can offer to society, particularly if she's raising kids at the same time, because we're undervalued and we undervalue ourselves." Now, I don't want to steal the spotlight here, but I really love that quote. And
Thank you.
I think there are many women in midlife and beyond who feel the exact same way. And I also think that a lot of brands and companies want to speak to us, but they don't know how to do that. How do we make ourselves more seen and heard?
I love your question so much because not enough people even ask that question. There are a million ways to do it. that I think women see and distance themselves from. Like going onto a podcast, going to a dinner party, going on TV, going on someone's comment section of their blog and speaking up a bit more about what they do for a living or what their views are. And I don't mean political, and I don't mean religious. I mean to be examples for other women about how proud they are to be doing what they're doing, or talk about how they would like to be doing something else and sharing that with one another. Women are just fundamentally, we're community-driven people. We connect really well. We relate really well. There are certain systemic cultural problems we have, like when you hear, oh, she's a mom, it makes people's eyes roll over in their head. And I don't know if that's because everyone has a mom and a lot of them don't like their moms. I don't know. But it's so discounted in our culture, at least in American culture, that it writes her off right away. Oh, she's a mom entrepreneur. So we used to have 50% of the women who would show up to our meetings be very proud of the fact that they were mom entrepreneurs, and 50% hated the term momtrepreneur and would only ever call themselves entrepreneurs because it was so demeaning to them. So I'm not going to speak to which one I think is better, but we have a lot that we have to fight against in order to be recognized, in order to be seen. I mean, the fact that I was invited onto certain TV shows to talk about how successful mom entrepreneurs are, I found to be kind of silly, because we're all going, ooh, even moms can do it. When in fact, moms are doing more than most people in a day anyway. And we all know that. So I think publicly and culturally, there's something so negative about it that if we all can speak up about our accomplishments, our bravery in trying to do what we have tried and failed at, none of it really matters to anybody else anyway. I think we'd get really far in raising other people up and giving them permission, where if I say, Holly, I worked really long and hard at doing this thing and building it up, and it wasn't easy, you might hear it and go, you know what? It wasn't easy for her. It doesn't feel easy for me, but she still did it. I'm still going to do it. Mm-hmm. That's all we need. That's really the only exchange we need everywhere, all the time. And so maybe that is another reason layered onto why I included my kids so much. Because I want them to know that it's no big deal. You can be a mom and do this too. Like nothing to it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
And because I think it's almost as if we feel we could be one and we could be really good at it, or we could be the other. But you can't have both in the same message.
I mean, well, then you get on the conversation about, is there such a thing as work-life balance? Can women have it all? Lots of these headlines we've all seen and read about. And I don't even think we need to get there. I think women need to start out knowing that we need to hear your voice more often. We need to shine a light on one another and ourselves. I mean, I spent years and years accomplishing quite a bit and never talking about it. And on interviews being super humble and thank you so much for having me. And my goodness, you made time for me. It's like I even have to berate myself there because I did it too. Because we're so well trained to do that and be nice and receive, Anyway, I could go on and on.
Haven't you ever known somebody for a while? Let's say, a year, 2 years, something like that. And then, just casually in conversation, they're talking and they're like, yeah, I paint portraits, or I'm a photographer. And you're like, I didn't know that about you.
Right. Like 17 years in. Why didn't you tell me, Brenda? Yeah, that part. And I always use that quote that I'm sure you've heard. It's so great, by Golda Meir, the one that's, don't be so humble. You're not that great. And it's such a good reminder that I actually, to take your example a step further, those women who will know you for a year and then 2 years and then 3 years and then she'll be like, yeah, I used to run the United Nations. Or like, yeah, I worked at NASA and launched the first rocket that ever went to space. Something so extraordinary.
You're like, what?
And she's still humble about it. And it's Yeah, so I want to undo that training in all of us. And I continue to work with women who, no matter how many times I ask them to appear somewhere or say something, they'll use those words that are so familiar to all of us. It's, well, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be seen as irritating. I don't want to be too persistent. I don't want to brag too much. And it's constantly an effort in squelching who you are because you want to make sure people will like you. And let's just eradicate that altogether. Can we do that today, right now? You and me?
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Because the thing is, no matter what you say or don't say, there's always going to be somebody that's not going to like you. Or like what
They're
you're
not
doing.
going
Or
to
connect
like
with you.
you.
Yeah.
They're not going to like you because you just hit a button and they're projecting that they don't want to have to do any of the work, so they're going to bring you down. So I think every single one of us needs to work on that. And when you bump into somebody who resists it, rejects it, hates women, hates bragging, hates whatever they hate, that's about them. That's not about you. So don't worry about it.
How do you handle that situation? Are you
If I am told-
confrontational?
Definitely not confrontational. I seem like I would be. I think the times I've gotten, frankly, it has always been in person to my face by men, and it has always been online via comments by women. So everybody picks and chooses how they attack. And if they attack to men, I will stand up for myself. I don't know if that's confrontational or not, but I will gently set them straight and say those things that we're finding a lot of famous women to say, like, no one would ever ask that of a man, or no one would ever comment about that to men. So I call them on it. The online comments are much nastier and harsher, and usually from women who are very disgruntled for whatever reasons. And I will either just ignore it, because you can do that with comments, or I will write something to help her think about what she said. And sort of not try not to take it personally, but just say, have you ever thought about why you're leaving such a horrific comment to a fellow female? I want to say it was 2012, I wrote an article for the New York Times, and I specifically said to the editor at the time, whatever you do, please don't use the word momtrepreneur or mompreneur, because it's going to take away from the gravity of my piece, because everybody loves to hate that term or loves to love it or whatever. It'll start a war. So, of course, what did they change the title of my post to?
No.
But something about, why momtrepreneur. Anyway, if you Google Jill Salzman and momtrepreneur, the title comes up. It's right there. So I wrote to the editor after 93 comments came in. And I want to say almost all of them were women talking down to me about how dare I use such a term, because it's horrifying, and who am I, and I'm not a real woman. And you could probably still find it and read the comments. It's just fascinating how we so strongly fight against what we should be working on. I guess it's easier to fight than grow.
Oh, I like that. And it's kind of sad, though, because I have talked to several women who are trying to put themselves out there more, and it might be on TikTok or social media or different forms, but there's always that little bit that comes back at them about the negative comments, and that it's a hard hit to sometimes your self-esteem when you're trying to deal with that.
I think eventually you get used to it, or you learn to ignore it, or you understand at the end of the day, which was a massive multi-year transition for me, that it's really truly not about you. Yeah. And it feels that way because you're the one that posted the thing that they're responding to. But if you really sit with their negative comments, it's always about them. And if you call them on it, it cuts off their ability to continue to cut you. And it sort of, calls them on it, sets them straight. It sucks. And so we women have to do better at reminding each other not to.
Sometimes it's just being nice. Can't you just be a nice person?
I know.
Right?
I know.
I don't know how that can
Yeah.
make you feel good to cut somebody else down. What are you going to gain from that? I'm not quite sure, but
I do think you're gonna gain the word relaxation is coming to mind, but you're gonna gain the ability to go, oh, I don't have to work on me. Let me just keep throwing darts. Let me just keep throwing arrows because I don't want to do the work.
let's just go back for a little bit to talk about how, this has changed you and sort of
Okay.
how that evolution has set you up for your next chapter, your story. What's going on with Jill? Where do you see yourself growing and moving in the next couple of years?
Thanks for asking. I am not a big planner. If you could tell, I had no goals when I launched the Founding Moms. But I knew in the last year of the Founding Moms, where before that, I was always a one-to-many girl. So I loved doing professional speaking gigs and hosting webinars and always talking at people and not with them. And something shifted. I don't know if I got wiser or if I wanted to go deeper. I don't know yet. But I knew in the last year, it's time I sit with people one-on-one and really dig into what's preventing them from moving forward. Because I was seeing so much of it across the board, similar patterns, I should say. I could probably boil it down to 5 different things people focused on that didn't let them accomplish whatever they wanted to accomplish. Money, time, stability, whatever it was. So I knew it's time, I need to move on. So I pretty much sold the Founding Moms and immediately launched a coaching business. And I started introducing all of myself, to potential clients, a lot of whom already knew that I did this work because I essentially had already been coaching people for over a decade. So it was a natural move. And ever since I did that, I have just been obsessed with the work. I love it to pieces. And I think I could do this for a really long time because going deeply and diving in and uncovering all of the stories and the fears and the crap that people love to tell themselves. I like to point a laser beam at it and say, do you realize that's not real? Do you realize you actually can do the thing? And so I think my strong suit is moving people along, moving them forward. And that's what I love to do. So I actually should call myself a business coach because that's where I am most comfortable, or I guess I've had the most experience, but I currently have clients of all kinds. I have one going through a terrible divorce. I have one dying from stage 4 cancer. I have several business clients, but it's all over the board because I think through my journey, I realized this whole idea of personal and professional being separate things isn't real. And it's all enmeshed and intertwined. And what's blocking you professionally could be something happening to you personally and vice versa.
You've been in the trenches with entrepreneurs, like you said, for a number of years. Is there anything that you find yourself saying or, advice that you're giving now that you probably wouldn't have had to do, 5-10 years ago?
I think the biggest shift or change or thing that's newer is that I work very fast. I am very impatient in my own work, and I figure things out. What I've learned is pretty quickly. I didn't know that before, but after working with thousands of entrepreneurs, I have realized that again, outlier, and it takes people a really long time. And so rather than giving people massive responsibilities or projects to go accomplish, to do the thing they want to do, taking it one tiny, teeny, eensy, weensy, 1% of a baby step at a time has become so important and so helpful because then everything is realistic and you can really do the thing. And that's not something I knew a long time ago because I used to walk around going, why isn't everybody already figuring it out? Like, why isn't it happening faster for most people? And I didn't know that that was unique to me. And I think in the entire universe, I've met one other woman that functions like I do. Literally one. So I know we all know to boil it down to little chunks,
Yes.
but I'm now a fan of doing like mini hyper chunks. There's like teeny pieces of the tiny chunk. And then everything feels so easy.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I'm going to bring it up again anyway, because you mentioned your TED Talk. And I think part of it was you talked about moms being multitaskers.
I know.
And we are, but don't you think that serves us well if you want to become an entrepreneur? You see
Look,
yourself
Holly.
as such.
Look, in the TED Talk, I certainly firmly believed that we are by nature multitaskers, and we are forced to be because a baby shows up and is constantly changing, and you need to not just deal with the baby, you also are breathing and need to eat. There's a lot you have to multitask to do, and I tended to go against the grain and ignore the science that while I think we are pretty darn good at it and develop even better skills as time goes on and as our kids get older, as the science says, we aren't really meant to handle multiple things at once. So we can. And I think I was also in an era where I did 5 things at once in a mediocre fashion, and I was just fine with that. And I didn't need everything to be great. And I moved to a place of, no, I want things to be great, so I can't do all 5 things at the same time. So I think that's probably also getting older, slowing down, realizing that doing all of that so quickly can accomplish a lot. I accomplished a lot doing a lot at once. But in the end, looking back, and now with coaching clients who are building businesses, I would never, ever suggest to them to go and do those 5 things at once. I have a much better understanding of, if we're talking linearly, what steps can be taken to do the same thing without spreading your brain cells so far apart that it actually holds you back. So, can I take back a TED Talk? Can I take it back?
No, you can't.
Okay.
No, you can't. But you've not only done TED Talks, though, but you shared the stage with some high-profile entrepreneurs. Richard Branson, Sheryl Sandberg.
Yes.
Those are really great.
Very cool people.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Were there things that you learned from those experiences that you still carry with you today?
Oh, 1,000 things. I mean, I could riff on all of them. With Sheryl Sandberg, I learned, it's going to sound silly and trite, but she's a very tiny person. And when she walked into the room, she's very little. And when she walked into the room, I've never met somebody so small that commands so much attention and confidence, and in not a I'm going to run you over way, and not an obnoxious way. She just had this self-assurance where she walked in, 3 seconds in, I was like, I want that. And I'm not a tall person, but I am bigger than her. So that was probably the biggest takeaway. And she said extraordinary things, of course, but that was my biggest takeaway with her. With Richard Branson, it's a little sillier. We were in Mexico. And so he spent his whole talk that I was really looking forward to learning from him about how to do. He spent a lot of the time inserting jokes. And he's English, and they're very dry jokes, and some of them were sex jokes. And the whole crowd was Mexican. So, a lot of them didn't understand what he was talking about, and it just went over their heads. And so I learned a lot that day about how to give a talk that can work globally. And it's interesting, I really like to pick up on people's energy, I think, because with Sheryl, it was this assured confidence, and with Richard, it was this laid back, I'm letting the universe throw whatever it needs to at me, and I'm going to figure it out. And everybody's different, so there are gems from everyone. But I loved that about how he spoke about business, because he's not the traditional controlling type. Maybe he is behind closed doors, but he wasn't on the stage. He was very much it leads me, not I lead it. That makes sense. Yeah. I said I could riff on everybody. Should I keep going? I could stop there.
Well, I'm going to ask you one more piece of wisdom. Was there anybody that you have spoken to before that you thought to yourself, how did I not know them?
I think it's a problem answering that because I ran a community of thousands of women and everybody has, that's another famous quote. Everybody knows something that you don't. I forgot who said it, but I learned so much from women that I, at the beginning of my career, thought, well, they don't know anything. I went to school for X, Y, and Z, so I know more than they did. I dropped that pretty quickly because everyone would come to a different meeting in a different city with some knowledge where I went, oh my God, I didn't. I mean, I literally learned more about accounting, bookkeeping. I learned more about legal stuff, and I went to law school. I learned about product creation. The list is long. So there wasn't like a moment because there were so many. But it's sort of like if you were to draw a graph, the later we got into my career, the more I would absorb and listen. The more you realize how little you know.
Sometimes I don't want to listen just out of spite because I think I should know better. Like, you know what I mean?
But why would you think anything else? Of course you do. Because we all think we should know better, especially as you get older.
Yeah.
Like, well, now I'm 50, now I got to know. Well, now I'm 60, so I should definitely know this. It's all such lies. Why would you? That's not true. It's not true.
Well, I love having had this conversation with you today. And if there is anybody out here who is watching us or who is listening, wants to know more about Jill and where they can find you,
yes, I would
what would
love
you like them to
have
do?
Every single person watching connect with me because I love to connect with people. It's my name. Just go to jillsalzman.com, JILLSALZMAN. You could probably even Google it. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I really genuinely, legitimately like to connect with people. So please don't be shy. Don't be scared. I don't bite. Do I bite? I don't bite. Yes.
Well, thanks so much, Jill. This has been so much fun.
This has flown by. I could keep talking to you for another 3 hours.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have part 2, 3, and 4. So
I'm in. Awesome.
Well, again, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Real Wisdom. If you're inspired by stories like this and want to be part of a community that celebrates the wisdom of women, visit joinempart.com and become a part of our conversation. And don't forget to subscribe for even more real wisdom. Until next time, keep embracing your story.